For coming. We do have some seats down here if you want to slide in. If not, I hope you're comfortable. We've got some great food afterwards. But I'm going to talk to you about a concept that I came up with while I was living in Vail on a walk. In Vail, there's so much art everywhere. And it's really nice, but it's abstract. And then I went to DC, and I also saw art. And some of it was amazing, and some of it was unusual, like a chair positioned on a crooked angle. I don't understand modern art, but I wanted to, or I didn't. So I decided to ask myself, what is art, and can I be an artist? So I came up with this theory that I call the articulate reality theory. Louder, okay. I came up with this theory called the articulate reality theory, which stands for art. So I asked myself, what does art, if I was going to define art, what does it mean? What is art, and what makes an art piece? And by that, what makes an artist? So I thought about it, and I said that art is a creation, any creation, that enlightens the mundane. That means that anything that's ever been created that enhances what is average can be considered art. And there are art pieces that are modern art that can be considered art, and there are some that really don't enlighten the mundane. But the truth is, whether for good or bad, that's not what art is about. But art is about something that enhances, enlightens the mundane. That said, I want to focus this on Shabbat and tell you why Shabbat is not only an art piece, but a full display of art that we get to experience every single week. Now, just like every artist, artists don't just create one day. They don't just create one art piece. They create a series of art pieces. They create a whole display of art pieces that complement each other, and then later on they're going to create more art pieces of a totally different demographic, or the same, but new genres, and those will be their next creations, their next art. So let's talk about Shabbat focusing on the challah. Just a piece of bread. That's what challah truly is. It's dough, baked, but it's special. We braid it. We braid it in 3, we braid it in 5, we make it look special. And by doing so, we create an art piece. And that art piece, we get to experience, we get to say a bracha on every single week. It's really special. To make a master art piece, to make a masterpiece, it's got to be memorable. It's got to be better on all of its dimensions. It's got to be better in taste and display, for example, for food. Therefore, when you have a very good challah, if it's memorable, it will taste very good and it will look better than a piece of bread. But that's only one art piece. And like I said, no creator, no artist is only making one art piece and calling it quits. So we go to the second dimension, and I break it down into 7 dimensions, and you'll see why. I believe that this encompasses anything that's ever been created. So the second dimension of art is going to be the entire menu. We do the bracha over the bread. What do you do to the bread that enlightens it, that brings it out, that enhances it? So we say the bracha, but then we also have it with wine. We dip it in hummus. We serve it with appetizers. We eat with it. We wash our hands before it. There's a whole encompassing culture surrounding this specific piece of art. Now, we go to the third dimension, and we lead to a production. This is the whole display. How does the meal play out over a period of time? In a Shabbat meal, you're not just going to have one course. I've never been to a Shabbat dinner that's had only one course. It's what we love about a Shabbat dinner. You're going to have a meal. You're going to be drinking wine. You're going to be drinking drinks, having dessert. So from the time that you are saying the bracha over the candles or from the time you say the bracha over the wine, we'll talk about just the table right now, until you say the Birkat HaMazon at the end of the meal, the prayer after the meal, you have enjoyed what I call 3-dimensional art. This is the production. This is a meal, start to finish. But there's so much more than that goes into Shabbat. And just like I said, there's so much more than that goes into any piece of art. There's the way that a viewer experiences the production. That would be the 4th dimension. This is called the gallery. This would be the table. This is the table that you're sitting at, the conversation you're having, the chairs you're sitting on, the lighting. Is it all art? Is it all artfully done? Is it creative? Is it comfortable? The whole meal now has a venue. It has a gallery. Now there's even more. The 5th dimension is an exposition. This is when you have a gallery after gallery and you add time involved. This is the whole day of Shabbat. This is not just one meal, but this is all the meals that you have. This is Shabbat lunch. This is the inspirational service. This is everything you experience from when you light the Shabbat candles until you light the Havdalah candle. From the opening ceremony of this art exposition until the closing ceremony of this art exposition. When you gather together around a table for Havdalah and you say, let's bring all of this special energy, all of this mastery work into our new week. And there's so much more. There is the fact that it happens every single week. This is the sixth dimension. This is the series. A series of art. This is exposition after exposition. This week, we read in the Torah the 10 Commandments, and we read about the commandment that we have to keep Shabbat. Because in 6 days, God created the world, and on the seventh, he rested. And every single week, it repeats. The cycle repeats continuously. And every week, we get to live a new exposition. We get to have a new dinner with new people, with new food every week, and it's so unique. But we get to rest. With all of our senses on Shabbat, we are given that day, which just happens to be the seventh day, to rest. But that's only 6 dimensions. And like I said, I believe that there are 7. Like I said, God gave us 7 days of creation. So what is the 7th day? What is 7? 7 is completeness. Like there's 7 sides on a cube. There's the sides on this outside, but then there's the physical side and the inside. The reason that the whole thing is created. The purpose of everything. And that's what the 7th dimension is. With everything we do on Shabbat, it all comes together. Why do we have Shabbat? Why does anything that creates exist? Why did Leonardo da Vinci paint the Mona Lisa? That's him, right? Just checking. Yeah, why did Leonardo da Vinci paint the Mona Lisa? What's the purpose of why it was done in the first place? And the purpose of Shabbat is that we get to have a day together to rest, to be the best that we can be, to not be the creators of art, but to be the viewers and enjoy the art that was created for us. And this is true with anything that we do. We need to create as much as we can, but we always need to have that purpose. And when we create, we need to not just create one art piece, but you need to create all the art pieces that surround that art piece. And in our life, we need to live every element of it by doing and making the best that we can be, by enlightening, by creating creations that enlighten the mundane, that are better than average. So I'm just going to review what I was saying. We start with the first dimension. We started with the challah. This is the art piece. Just one of the many art pieces of Shabbat, the challah. Second dimension is the menu, the entire what's going to be served around the challah. How are we blessing it? How are we washing our hands before it? The third dimension, again, was the production. This is the entire meal. How did the dessert, how did the main course, how did everything bring out the flavor of the challah and enhance and just continue that art piece? What were all the art pieces together that were presented at the table? The fourth dimension is the, I'm blanking on it. I'm sorry. The fourth dimension is the gallery. This is the table. This is how the chairs are comfortable. How are everybody interacting with each other? What is served and how is it served? How is the room? How's the lighting? This is the venue. This is how the viewer appreciates and engages in the art gallery, the production that's been created. The exposition is the fifth dimension. This is how everyone interacts with the whole day, start to finish, from opening ceremony of lighting the candles to the closing ceremony of saying goodbye and welcoming the new week through Havdalah, which doesn't mean separation, but continuation of light, bringing all of that energy into the new week. And finally, the sixth dimension is that we get to experience this again the next week. We get to create for 6 days, and on the 7th day, we get to rest again. We get to have and enjoy God's art every single week for the mere purpose, the 7th dimension, of living the most full life that God intended for us to live. In 6 days, we can do what we need to do, and on the 7th day, we get to rest, we get to enjoy it, and we get to live this life to the fullest. So this concept really applies to everything, every single thing. When you go to a gallery, think about it. But over the next week, think about how your life and what you're doing is done artfully and through the lens of art at the best that it can be. Let me know if you have any questions, and thank you so much. Shavua Tov.